Four things to become financially independent. Number one, you got to learn how to rewire your mind. That is first and foremost. Number two, you have to learn to eliminate sabotage. Most people don't even know it's a thing. It's a thing for all human beings. Number three, build a ridiculous skill set and strategy. And number four, you had better learn to invest. And I believe real estate is the only place to put it.
Zach, if you don't know, this is Tony, and we have Mark Tosoni on with us today to give a little premise on what's going on, why we're even on this call, why we decided to do it. Couple of things. A, Mark Tosoni and I met at the Volt conference, at Patrick Bet-David's Volt conference, about 3 months ago. Yeah, what was it? October?
Yeah. We sat at the same table for our lunch break.
By accident. I wasn't even supposed to be at that table. There was two different sessions for the certain package of the ticket you bought. I ended up sitting over in that seat for whatever reason. Me and Mark and Tony had a great conversation. We ended up doing a podcast together. And one of the clips from our podcast went extremely viral with Mark Tosoni. And that clip was Mark's 4 ways of creating wealth, his strategies to create wealth. Rewire your mind, eliminate self-sabotage, build a ridiculous skill set, and learn how to invest. So that's what these 4 days are going to be. Each day is going to be the one of those lessons we're going to dive deep on. Obviously, today being how to rewire your mind. So Mark's going to go through Rewire Your Mind. We're going to give some input. We'll ask Mark some questions. If you guys want to ask some questions, put it in the chat. And then at the end, it'll be open to ask some direct questions to Mark and we can talk about it. But real quick on Mark Tosoni. Mark Tosoni owns a company, Solar Bear. He does coaching and he's my life coach. After we met, we did a podcast, and then 2 weeks later, I'm like, yeah, I need to get close to this guy. So Mark is very good at what he does. You're going to find that out today. But Tony, why don't you go ahead and start with Mark? Ask him a question. Go ahead.
So, well, I'd like to know where we want to start with the rewire. First of all, I love your poster. I want to put that out there.
Okay.
Hopefully we got some 1%ers in here today.
Yeah, man.
But I'd just like to hear you get started on, how you would advise someone to rewire their mind. Where do we start?
Okay, great question. Where do you start to rewire your mind? So there's a story about a salesman. I'll start with a story. There's a story about a salesman, and he goes to run this lead way out in the country. And he pulls up. He sees the guy, kind of gives him the good guy wave, goes over to the porch. The guy's sitting on the porch waiting for him. And he goes over there, greets himself, introduces himself. And he notices that there is a dog sitting next to him. So he's like, hey, what's the dog's name? That's Rufus type of thing. And so he's talking to the customer. They're having a little bit of a warm up. And he notices the dog is in pain. And the dog's kind of squealing. And so he looks at the prospective customer and he's like, hey, the dog looks like he's in pain here. You want me to do something to help him? And the homeowner is like, oh, no, that's no problem at all. There's a nail that comes up off the porch and he's sitting on it and it hurts him. And the salesman's like, are you sure you don't want me to do something to help him? And he's like, no, he'll be all right. When he's had enough pain, he'll finally move. And so the moral of that story is when you've had enough pain, you'll finally move. And the move you need to make if you want to become wealthy is to rewire. Now, a lot of times when we talk about rewire, we're talking about the mind. But I want to make a clear distinction here. And I'm very clear on this. This has taken me over 3 decades to get clear on this distinction. A lot of us read books. Some of those books are over 100 years old. Think and Grow Rich is one of the most popular ones out there. A lot of people don't know this, but Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich, retired broke. And so here, this man spent his entire life's work, creates this book called Think and Grow Rich, studied the wealthiest people of that day, Henry Ford, the Carnegies, and others. So he knew everything about wealth. But why is it he retired broke? And if it wasn't for W. Clement Stone, the owner of Combined Insurance Company of America and the author of, I believe, Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude is a book that he wrote. If it wasn't for him in the later years of his life, he would have been completely broke. And so when the author of a book that has sold millions of copies, Think and Grow Rich, goes broke, I don't know about you, but I want to know about that. I need to know more about that. What's going on here? How did this happen? Like, what happened, right? So what I discovered was that you really have three things to put your focus on. Number one is your mindset. Number two is your heart set. And number three is what I like to call your soul set. Your soul set, your heart set, and your mindset. And a lot of people, they've just not had enough pain. So they're not willing to rewire. And they're misperceiving things that happen, upsets. It's the upsets that are going to take you out. And tomorrow we'll talk more about sabotage, but it's the upsets that are going to take you out. Upsets are what keep your wealth away from you. And you don't even realize it. It could be a road rage incident. It could have been a fight in the 5th grade. It could have been a divorce. It could be a sickness. It could be a death of a parent. It could be an accident. It could be anything. Everything comes down to perspective. And if you got emotion tied to these upsets, I'm telling you right now, it's going to block your wealth. If you're a spouse, I just want to add this little piece here. If you're a spouse, you and your spouse form one mind. The two of you create one mind. And so there's something called a financial thermostat. And you and your spouse form a financial thermostat. So if you're doing this work, you want to make damn sure your spouse is doing it with you. And believe me, I speak from experience around this matter. My wife goes everywhere with me on this stuff today. I don't do it alone. I do it with her because I understand that half of my mind is hers. The two of you form one. It's like a mastermind. Just like right now, all of us coming together forms one mastermind, right? So a lot of us spend time programming the mind. There's only one problem. The mind is not the first player. Even though I mentioned the mind first, if I did it in order, it would go like this. Soul set number one, heart set number two, mindset number three. And if I went number four, it would be chi, or your energy. And if I went number five, it would be material matter. That's the order of creation. And that's according to the Tao, which is 5,000 years old. So if you've ever done any studying on creation, you will learn that that is the sequence. We know a lot about the law of attraction, so we spend time in the mind. We try to visualize, and they tell us to feel it and feel as if it already is and start to imagine it and write down goals. I'm not disputing any of this. There's only one problem. If you don't understand the soul set and what it's all about, it can completely sabotage everything you create. How many of you know anybody who created something amazing and absolutely sabotaged it? Anybody know anybody like that? Right? I think of pro athletes, like my favorite. I never, ever missed a Mike Tyson fight in my life. And I love Mike Tyson, man. Love that guy. You know, I was brought up on him. He's probably a couple years older than me. But to watch him sabotage his life, thank God he got it all back. But he sabotaged it. Michael Vick, anybody remember him? Here he has this huge NFL contract. And what's he do with it? Right? He's fighting dogs. Like, what the hell are you doing fighting dogs when you're at that level? I just want you to understand, and I can go on and on. Who's this guy who just did the big scam with crypto, right? This dude, like, biggest scam in history. Bernie Madoff. Remember Bernie Madoff? He defrauded people out of billions, right? So you see these stories and cases on big levels. You see them on small levels. But here's the common denominator that has obsessed my mind since I lost my first business. I built a 100-employee business in my 20s, and I lost it, and I got obsessed. I got incredibly obsessed with how the mind works and why did that just happen and how do I prevent it from happening? And so the way you prevent it from happening is you understand there is a field. For those of you who are scientific, you can study quantum physics. It will give you the answers you're looking for. There's a field. What we call the soul in the field is the exact same thing. It's an information field. How many of you have ever had a road rage incident and you said an F-bomb at somebody, F-bomb? Anybody ever F-bomb, or was that just me?
On the way
Okay.
here today.
Glad to see some of you did that too, right? You get pissed off in a game. You guys have played sports. You've been in relationships. You've had all kinds of upsets in life. Well, where does that information from those upsets go? When you speak, do you understand every single word is being recorded? And it's being recorded into what they call the field, or what some people call the soul. It's an information field. And so I was doing a meditation this morning in preparation for this meeting, and I came up with this little drawing. This is my way of depicting what I'm about to tell you. You see the outside circle here? That's the field. That's the soul. And what you got to understand is, look at this line right here. The soul feeds the heart information, and the heart spits the information back out to the mind. So you want to really, really get this, because if you get this, you'll be able to rewire yourself like this as soon as you decide. I rewire myself all day, every day. It's not a one-time thing. Oh, I sit down, I go into some kind of a deprivation tank, I rewire myself, and I come out and everything's fine. Do you know how many bits and how many pieces of information are in your soul set, in your field of energy? It's infinite. It's like in the trillions. Think about all the experiences, all the upsets you had, the people who made fun of you, the things you learned about money, the things you learned about health, the things you learned about relationship. It's all in that soul set. It's in the quantum field. And that field feeds your heart, not your anatomical heart, your heart chakra. Do you know doctors today believe that your heart is your first brain? They literally believe that your heart energy center is what feeds the brain. And I believe this. I believe this is true. So you think a thought and you're like, where'd that thought come from? So some of you are really, really struggling with thought because your information field is so overridden with negative circumstances that have happened to you, and you haven't yet rewired them or processed them. And so once you learn to rewire what's going on in the soul, automatically the soul or the field will start to send new information to the heart. The heart will send new information to the brain and the mind. And all of a sudden you will have spontaneous thoughts like, wow, I wonder what it would be like if I became a billionaire. Not a millionaire, a billionaire. You will think about wealth in a new way. You will not think in terms of scarcity, because your soul is an information field that has negative and positive. It's got it all recorded. And guess what? To make matters a little more challenging initially, your soul also has the recordings of your ancestors. I've been coaching on ancestry for 10 years. When I coach people, I always talk to them about their ancestry. Where's your tribe from? Where your people come from? Okay, because your people have downloaded through DNA, and quantum physics, neuroscience proves this. It's no longer debatable. The Bible talked about it, used to call it generational curses. Well, do you know there's also such a thing called a generational blessing? And most of you have a generational blessing. And the generational blessing you have is your people were amazing survivors. And they survived. If you come from African-American descent, any sort of Hispanic descent, European descent, Asian descent, your forefathers survived. You know how freaking hard that was? So you got survival coming out of your soul and your information field at a very high level. There's only one problem with that. What happens if you've decided you want to become wealthy? And by the way, when I say the word wealth, I'm not just talking about money. If you do the etymology on the word wealth means wholeness. It means to become whole. You already are whole, but you got information hitting you in the heart and hitting you in the mind that's telling you you're not whole. You're fragmented. Something's wrong. We're broken. Life's a bitch. Then you die. What a struggle. This is what's going on. This is the feedback that you're getting in your brain. And some people actually listen to it. Some people actually listen to it and they end their lives because it can become so freaking miserable. let me tell you something. My thoughts work for me. I don't work for them. My money works for me. I don't work for it. My feelings work for me. I don't work for them. You guys got to really get this. This is part of the rewiring process. If you ever listen to Anthony tell his story about how he lost his leg, it's a prime example of rewiring. He woke up in the hospital and he just knew immediately. He knew immediately that he made this shift. And he had to go through this accident to have the shift. How many of you like to have the shift just because you choose to have the shift? Write this down. I choose to evolve. You can grow through pain or wisdom. Choose wisdom. I'm telling you, it's an option. Don't go the painful route. It will teach you. You'll get your assets handed to you, but it will teach you. So at the end of the day, I choose to learn through wisdom. So what do? I connect to my soul every day. See, some of you, you're running your life based on your ego. Good luck with that. Ever hear the saying, your ego is not your amigo?
Ego is the enemy.
The ego is not your amigo, man. It's going to wreck you. It wrecks your life. I've been watching this and observing this behavior my entire adult life. In particular, I've been watching it in myself. You know, how can you become a millionaire, lose it? Listen, I have proved a lot of things. You can actually become financially wealthy and be incredibly miserable. I proved that to myself. You can do this. I just didn't know how. I was trying to imagine this glorious future, but I was being ridden with all this negativity. And today that's not the case. Why? Because I go to the source of it. And the source of it is your soul. So I'm going to give you this quick takeaway today. I'll give you two big takeaways today, and then we can open this up. Number one, when you go to your soul, you say hello. You say, what's up, soul? And you acknowledge it. See, most of you have been ignoring this part of your life, and you don't really, and I know this might sound a little odd to some of you. Some of you might be just like, give me the strategy. I want to create wealth. Okay, I'm going to give you the strategy, then I'll go back to the soul. Here's the strategy: buy real estate. So now we go back to the soul. We go back to the soul, okay? So you want to buy more real estate, you want to do even better, you got to rewire the information in your soul. You got to learn how to transfer the negative stuff into positives that are going to serve you. So how do you do that? You say hi to your soul. A lot of you don't acknowledge it because you sold out to the ego. And if you sold out to the ego, man, my heart goes out to you. My heart really, really goes out to you. And that's why I do this work. I do this work in honor of my father, who was a great man. He was bilingual, had his PhD, he was an athlete, he knew the street, he knew books, he was smart, he had friends, he had community, he had money, he had everything. But you know what? He couldn't lick his wounds. He couldn't lick those negative emotions, those negative experiences. And my father, it got so bad in his 70s that he ended up taking his life. And when he took his life, I made a decision. And I'm angry, I'm pissed off, I'm hurt. No letter, no goodbye, nothing. He just made a choice and exited the experience. I made a decision in that moment that I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to this work. And so if you're one of those people suffering, let me be very clear with you. I get it. I was brought up around mental illness. I've been around mental illness since I was a little kid. I have a brother who's a cross-addicted drug addict. I get it. I've seen struggle and addiction my entire life. And I know many of you have too. And you know why people do that? Because they have to escape from the conversation and the feelings going on inside them. So the only way they can escape is into drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, shopping. They have to escape into something because it's so freaking unbearable. And that's why I do this work. I do this work to make a difference because it doesn't have to be that way. If you would just be willing to go there, you say hi to your soul, what's up? I want you to show me some of the things in my life I need to start to rewire. See, in the Bible, it says, ask and you shall receive, right? But you got to ask. So you ask the question and say to yourself, so talk to your soul like it's one of your friends. Just have a conversation with it. say, what is it I need to rewire? Help me to rewire. Show me how to rewire. And for me, this has become a daily practice. It's a daily practice of going within. When I wake up, when I go to bed, I'm constantly having a conversation with my field, with my soul. We're constantly in a conversation. What do we got to do to rewire? I don't pellet things, I ask. And that's the problem with so many of us. We weren't heard when we were kids. So instead of asking, we tell because we so desperately need to be heard, which is something else that needs to be rewired. So it's a matter of rewiring your soul. And all you really got to do fundamentally is ask. Is there more to it? Yeah, there's more to it. We've only got so much time here. Second thing, any one of you can do this right away, but you're going to need help to do it. Rewire your hurt set. How many of you have upsets? How many of you have people in your life you resent? How many of you have things in life you regret doing? How many of you have people you're angry with? How many of you are angry with yourself for decisions you've made and things that you've allowed to happen? You don't think this affects your wealth? You are not thinking straight if that's what you're thinking. Regret and resentment and guilt make money go away from you. So this stuff's all in the heart. So I do a ton of forgiveness work. And you'll hear me say this. My wife and I were talking about this earlier. Everything shows up in levels and layers. How many of you have ever done you've forgiven somebody, but then 2 years later it comes back again, right? And there's another experience with that person or that situation. You thought you forgave it, but you really didn't because it shows up in levels and layers. And so what a lot of us don't realize is the mirror principle of life. This is the greatest principle of life. And most people spend their life avoiding this one principle. Most addiction is based on avoiding this one principle. You think things are happening to you. Nothing's happening to you. It's happening for you if you will say yes and allow it to happen for you. But you're not perceiving it correctly. You have an upset with a family member. They did something to you. Now you stop talking to that family member. Instead of looking and inquiring, what is this trying to show me that I need to rewire? Some of you have great ideas about becoming wealthy. And you say to the universe or wherever you're talking to, I want to become wealthy. And then the next thing you know, the very next thing you know, you have an upset. And what you don't realize is that upset's not in the way, it's on the way. Because if you can clear that upset, it's going to move you closer to the wealth. So do you sit on what upsets or are you clearing them? Like, what's your modus operandi? Are you the type of person who clears upsets? Or are you the type of person who just sits on them? I've observed my whole life, people who sit on upsets have miserable freaking lives. People who are willing to clear upsets, the good, the bad, the ugly, the worst of the worst upsets. And I got great news for you. You don't always even have to go back to the person you had the upset with. You can do this all energetically because human beings are all connected. If you've had an experience with someone, you have an energetic experience in your soul with that person, and they have one with you. You are connected whether you realize it or not. And so you can learn, you can start to let go of these upsets. So here's what I'd ask you to do. Write down the 3 biggest resentments you have. Write down the 3 biggest regrets you have. And write down 3 things you're guilty for, you feel guilty about. And remember, when you're doing forgiveness work, oh, Mark, just give me the strategy. I just want the strategy. Okay, I'll give you the next strategy. Refi the real estate you bought. Let me go back to...
Oh my God.
I just want the strategy. Just give me the strategy, right? Everybody's addicted to strategy because you don't understand that this stuff is blocking you, right? So you got to do the forgiveness work. Where do you need to forgive yourself? What do you regret? What are you resentful for? What are you guilty about? Who do you need to forgive? Who do you need to help let go? Like, who's got to let go of this? You, God, you got to forgive God, the other person, yourself. Do whatever you got to do. Ask your soul, show me how to let this go. Like in my coaching program, I'm teaching people how to let go of things, not hang on to this. If you're carrying all this luggage and you want to pick up all this real estate, you can't pick up the real estate and hang on to the luggage at the same time. You got to let go of the luggage. But so many of you want to hang on to it. I used to have a teacher, and he used to tell me that I had an overwhelming need to be right. And he was right about that. I did. And so I developed this concept. I'd rather be wrong and rich than right and broke. I'll be wrong all freaking day long, every day. I'm perfectly okay being wronger than wrong. I'll be the wrongest guy in the room. I got no issue with it, because I'd rather be wrong and wealthy and rich than right and broke. So many of you, you're hanging on with your pride. Your pride is what's hanging on to something. You know what pride is? Pride is shame inverted. And let me say that shit again, because that is damn profound. Pride is shame inverted. That's what it is. You oscillate between pride and shame. Notice I'm still talking about the emotions, and I know you guys just want that strategy. Okay, I'll give you the third strategy. Buy multifamily, don't buy single family. That's the third strategy I gave you. Don't buy singles, buy multis. You guys got to realize what the emotion does to you. The heart is more magnetic, and it gives off more energy by a long shot. You guys can go to heartmath.com. You can learn all about this. They've been doing experiments for 20 years. The heart is electromagnetic. If you have a heart problem, what do they do when you go to the hospital? They put what on you? An EKG. The heart is electromagnetic. We have an epidemic crisis in the world of heart attacks. The heart is attacking the person. Why? I just want to let go of shit, man. I don't want to hang on to nothing. Zero. I just want to forgive it all. I want to let it go. I want it out of my cells. I want it to move on and transform. I want the wisdom from the experience, but I want to drop the emotion. I want the emotion to let go. Even the CDC, who is pretty clueless, and if you work for them, I apologize, but long story short, they say 80% of all dis-ease is emotional. And it's true. Behind every dis-ease, and by the way, being broke is a dis-ease. It's not ease around money, right? Being sick is not ease around health. Having horrible relationships is not having ease with relationships, right? I had an autoimmune disease. How many of you have had an autoimmune condition? Autoimmune thyroid, lupus. How many of you have a parent that has something like this? Rheumatoid arthritis, cancer. These are all autoimmune diseases. You know, when I was a kid, there wasn't even such a thing. Where an autoimmune disease, where your body is fighting against itself. That's not wealth. That's what I call success with side effects. I was a millionaire, a multi-millionaire with an autoimmune condition. That's not success. That's called success with side effects. And so I'm here to tell you, if you will do the work in your soul, if you will do the work in your heart, then guess what? The mind is the easiest thing in the world to program, because now your soul and your heart are sending impulses of thought that will blow you away. Thoughts you've never thought before. Like, wow, what if I owned the world? Or wow, what if I became the president? Or wow, what would it take for me to become completely financially independent? Or what would it take for me to move into something that I absolutely love doing? You start having a different conversation with yourself, which opens up new possibilities. When you try to create wealth from the ego, it does not work. It has to come from the intelligence that is you, and the intelligence that is you is also the intelligence that is your ancestors. It is amazing how rich your ancestry is. But let me say this, if your ancestors weren't wealthy with money, you want to know what the negatives were in your soul, in your field. They might have just been up to surviving with money. My relatives were. They were just surviving with money. They were not thriving. So I had to rewire all that. And that's where I came up with all this, because it's like I'm rewiring all this, buying all this real estate, becoming wealthy, but still having a struggle. How many of you have ever felt like you're getting ahead, but you still have a struggle? right? I really believe that you can have a life of ease. That doesn't mean your life is going to be easy. It just means ease. Ease means you are not in the way. So it flows more because your ego got the heck out of the way. Listen, I can ramble all day long, Tony. I should probably just
I wish you would. I'm loving it.
Yeah.
Dude, these are what we call big figgity flapjack facts on the
Yes.
Two Dudes Three Legs podcast.
I just hope everyone's taking little notes here because a lot of what you said was prophetic. Being broke is a disease. I think that's my favorite one.
Listen, there were so many things there that I was gonna stop and just try to say something about, but I didn't want to stop you. That was incredible. And for the guys who haven't met Mark, you can see why we wanted him on, because the stuff he shares is very different. You know, step one of creating wealth is this right here, rewiring your mind. And we have a lot of guys on my solar team on this call. And in order to create wealth, you have to do the things like this. There's a reason why this is step number 1 and not number 2, not number 3, and not number 4. Because number 3 and 4 become easy when you have number 1 and 2 down, which is how to rewire your mind. And then tomorrow, how to eliminate self-sabotage. When you stop doing those 2 things, you're ahead of 99.99% of the world. So it becomes a much different ball game when you can play like that. You're playing a different game. So I forget which, it was either Socrates or Aristotle or Plato, one of the 3 smart motherfuckers from a while ago. But they said the hardest thing in the world is mastering yourself and to know yourself. And it's so difficult to do. And that's why this is so important. Rewiring your brain. It's not like Mark said, the first thing he said was, I don't go in a deprivation tank and figure it out like this. This is years and years and years and years and decades of work to get to the level that Mark has. And I'm still working on this myself. I say things that I should never say all the time. We all do. Negative, stupid stuff that we say out into the world. And I just gave a speech the other day. And I said, listen, you don't have to be a positive Patrick, but you can't be a negative Nancy. So you don't have to be this super positive, fake, outgoing person, but you can't be negative. Mark told me a few weeks ago on a coaching call, our body, was speaking, is electricity. So our body has electric in it, right? And when you think, when something positive happens to you, it has 1 unit of charge to our body. And when something negative happens to you, it has 4 units of charge to our body. So it's 4 times more powerful to our chemistry, physiologically, when something negative happens to us. So these things, like all these little things, when you take this and you process it and you actually rewire your mind with it, this is the kind of stuff that puts you levels and levels ahead of the game. Like Mark said, you can have the broken mindset and still get rich, but you're going to get rich. You're not going to get wealthy. Oftentimes, you're going to lose it. Oftentimes, you're going to have success with side effects, like Mark said. So I had to make a couple points there because I didn't want to stop you before, but my God, man. Mark, I don't know if you want to keep going. You want to open up with questions?
Well, real quick, I think it's important that, you know, what I think people should, and I'm sure a lot of you are taking notes, but I like the diagram of how, I'll call it your manifestation diagram. Starts in the soul, then the heart, then the mind, then chi, and then it becomes physical. And I think if everyone understands that and uses that to manifest, it makes it easier for you to attain what you're going for.
That changed my life, learning that distinction. What he just said to you, that's called the law of creation, not the law of attraction. The law of creation comes before the law of attraction. And so when you work from the soul to the heart to the mind, if you just go in that order, soul, heart, mind, instead of mind and forgetting about the heart or the soul, you will be infinitely more successful.
Boom.
Any questions?
Yeah, I got a quick question for you.
Yes.
So when you catch yourself falling into or having, you know, old beliefs during this process and journey of rewiring your mind, what's one of your best techniques or strategies to snap out of that and correct your thought patterns?
It's a great question, because some of it you can do on the fly and some of it you cannot. It depends on the level of the upset. So it's always important that you begin to notice what tripped my switch, what triggered me. Was it a person who said a certain thing? Was it the guy next to me in a car who flipped me off? Was it the company who shorted my paycheck? Was it the customer who canceled? What is triggering you? So the way I work that is I work it from the trigger backwards, from the trigger backwards. On a level of, thought, you can ask yourself a question. A big thing is to learn to get out of judgment and move into question. And the more you do the work, the easier it is to live in a question. The ego has got everything all figured out. I have people talk to me about real estate who've never invested in one piece of real estate. And they tell me everything about it. They know everything. They know about rehabbing. They know all this stuff. Or people talking about sales. The ego, it's not your amigo. So you learn to go into a question and you ask yourself, what is this bringing up for me that would really benefit me to see? What is this bringing up for me that it would really benefit me to see? And if you stay in that question, you might not get the answer right in that moment, but believe me, in an hour and a half hour, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, the answer pops and you'll have a memory, because that current upset, what we call negativity, which is really not negativity at all. How many people say, oh, I'm not doing any more drama? You're going to do drama. Yes, you are, until you clear up the energy field. You'll keep doing drama. You're just not going to do it with that person anymore. You're going to do it with somebody else, because the patterns are the same. Because the way the unconscious mind works is first you push it down. This is how we cope. This is how you survive. You have a traumatic experience. You push it down. Then later on in life, it's trying to get out. People say I have anxiety. You know what anxiety is? Anxiety is too many upsets that you didn't let go of. That's all anxiety is. So then people got to start smoking weed because they got anxiety. Now you smoke the weed and now you're lazy. So, but you want to become wealthy, but you got no drive. You got no hunger. You got to be hungry to make money, to become wealthy. You got to be freaking starving. I'm 56 years old and I'm freaking starving. I'm very grateful for everything I've created, but I am never freaking satisfied. I am hungrier than I've ever been. I feel like I'm just stepping up to bat. So you got to work these upsets instead of escaping from the upsets into anything. You work your upsets. That's how you do it. And once you connect the dots between what upset you and what the original cause was, if you start to do some work around that original cause, some forgiveness work, you start to perceive it differently. This wasn't in the way. This was on the way. This had to happen for me to become who I am. When you look at your life in the rearview mirror, every one of you, all your pain is your purpose. The only problem is some people are stuck in the pain, so you never get to access your purpose. The Bible says many are called, few are chosen. You know what that means? Many are called. We all have the opportunity, but only a few people do the work. The rest of them don't do the freaking work. When you look at a guy who's a millionaire or multimillionaire, you look at somebody wealthy, they're doing some freaking work. They are up to something. They are up to something. They're doing the work. And that's what I'm recommending you do. You do the work. That's why my story, when I started this, is about a dog who's sitting on a tack. When he's had enough pain, he will move. Have you had enough pain? Have you all had enough pain? I know I've had enough pain, man. I really have. And that's not all my fault, and it's not all your fault, but it's your responsibility. Much of that information is coming out of your lineage. It's your job to clean it up. Clean it up. Clean it up for all the future. Clean it up for all the past. Hopefully that helps you.
Troy, go ahead. You had a question, and then Mike Belgrave, you're next.
Me?
Yeah, I think. Did you raise your hand in the chat?
I did.
Okay,
Thank
just
you for
making
calling me. Yeah, so, Mark, I've been with you for many, 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 many years, and you've, got me to my place thus far. So I thank you and have much gratitude for that. The one thing that I, wanted to, go back to your process on the soul, the heart, and the mind. How do you make the transition to the soul, first of all, and make that connection for you? What's your process? And then the other would be to go from there to the heart and the mind. What's
So
the actual processes?
My process is
Your
when
processes.
when I wake up, I immediately go into meditation. It's the first thing I do. And it's the last thing I do. It's first and the last thing I do every day. So I leave
Do
the
you
day.
use a specific?
I do a lot of different ones. It's funny. I think it's Ibrahim. I hope I didn't say that incorrectly, but he was asking, like, how do you do this stuff? Like some of the upsets I've done, I do different meditations. I might get triggered so bad I can't deal with it. That happens. So I'll do a biogenic meditation for that, something called biogenics.
Okay.
And you guys can look that up. Dr. Shealy, I think is his name. Very inexpensive, and that was very helpful for me. But really, what's been life-changing, and what I'm bringing into my own coaching program this year, along with the processes, is the soul work, is doing the work on the field, where the information is to begin with. Because when you start to change the information, when it moves forward to the heart is picking up all different signals. The heart's a receiver. Remember, your energetic heart is a receiver. Most people don't realize this. It's also a transmitter. It then transmits it to the mind. So my recommendation would be to get up in the morning and start to have a conversation with your soul. Acknowledge it. Say hello. Just get quiet, go within. Close your eyes, go within. We're always without. I need the strategy. What's the strategy? Okay, I'll give you the fourth real estate strategy. You want another strategy? I'll give you another one. Okay. Buy more units. Don't buy little multifamilies. Buy big multifamilies, because it's the same freaking thing. But in the morning, you go within, Troy. You get quiet. You go within and you ask yourself, you talk to your soul. Say, soul, what's up? The soul of Troy Yarborough. The heart, soul, mind, body of Troy Yarborough. How are you? I'm grateful for you. I acknowledge you. I love you. I'm grateful for you. Just say those words and watch how you feel. You're going to just feel this feeling like, whoo, like some part of you is just like, whoo, whoa. Like some part of you just awakens, right? Then it can become a dialogue. Hey, I'm working on growing my sales. What's the 3 best things I can do to raise my sales? See, what you guys got to understand is information. How do you think Einstein developed the theory of relativity? Did any of you ever learn about that? Like, he was a meditator. How do you think electricity was discovered? These guys were all meditators. They all went within, and boom, they get this flash of insight. It's because the quantum field, the soul, what we call the soul, it's an information field. So you have to understand, in the information field, you have negative. In the information field, you have positive. So you start asking yourself to start to transfer your negatives, your lineage, your heritage, start to transfer it over to positives that are going to support my intentions today. And my intentions today are to become worth what? 100 million, 50 million, 1 million, a billion? Like, what is your intention? Declare it and ask your soul to transform the information to align with what I'm choosing. And all of a sudden, you're going to start to become aware. For me, it kind of feels like a computer bank. And I feel like the data is just all day. It's just like, all this data is just transferring over to this positive, more supportive thing. And then it starts dropping these messages in my heart, and I start getting these thoughts that are like, holy crap, where did that come from? This is creation. And let me tell you something, when you play that out from your soul to your heart, but you got to clean up the heart set. So many upsets in the heart, the guilt, the resentment, the anger, the revenge, all the wounds are sitting there tucked away energetically in your heart. So your heart can't even receive a good transmission from the information field. So you got to clean that up. Start to clean that up. And then the mind is going to get such clarity. It'll be like a whole nother level. Troy, hopefully that's helpful for you.
Awesome. All right. Mike, go ahead. Last question. Then we're going to wrap it up.
Hey, Mark. Yeah, I want to thank you for getting on this call with all of us and giving us this information. Really appreciate it, for real. So one thing that I'm like trying to work on with myself, I have trouble with. I'm trying to like remove the ego part while still keeping my confidence, because I feel like it's hard for me to, like, I don't like to call myself cocky because I feel like it's like a made up word, but at the same time, like, I'm trying to like tone it down while still remaining confident, you know what I'm saying? So I could shine, because obviously the ego will bring it down.
Confidence is a natural state of being. Look at a baby. Do babies like look the other way? Like they're going to look at you. They observe. It's a natural way of being, right? It's only because people told you what you're not. People spend so much time telling us what we're not. We're fighting against what they told us we're not. So then we try to be something instead, right? So it's this battle. You're battling the information that they dropped into your field, whatever that might be. You're not enough, and I'm not saying this is you, Mike. This could be anybody, right? You're not enough. You're not going to amount to nothing. Whatever they say to you, right, that you accept it as truth. Some kid the other day in soccer told my little guy, my 9-year-old, he told him he was fat. My 9-year-old's got a freaking six-pack, right? Like he's very well built. He's got a natural six-pack. And he told me the other day he's fat. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're fat. He's like, so-and-so told me I was fat. I'm like, well, we're going to whack him and his whole family. We're putting a hit on all of them. Nobody calls you fat. Right? Oh, wait. Oh, slip. That was bad. My bad. We're gonna recreate that. Oh shit. Okay, I didn't mean it like that. What I meant was, imagine beating up a little 9-year-old. You don't call my son fat, you little punk ass, right?
I like Mark. He's real. He's real.
So the thing is, let me say this to you. Confidence, when it's in business, you know what confidence comes from? Confidence comes from raising your skill, which we're going to get into on Wednesday. Okay, because when you do something over and over again and you become incredible, you naturally become confident. Confident is your natural state. What happens is the cockiness is pride. And the reason we go into pride is because we have shame. You got shame that is buried. So we got to work through the shame. So my question to you, Mike, would be to write this down. Who, if you're going into pride, who shamed me? Where did they shame? How many of you have ever heard somebody say, you should be ashamed of yourself, right? I never use those words with my kids, never, right? People tell you that all the time. You should be ashamed of yourself, right? There's a lot of shaming that goes on, and there's a lot of things to be ashamed of. The opposite of shame is pride. So we go into pride. I had this problem for years and years, and I still have to work on it from time to time. So the shame comes up. The shame, once the shame starts to get dealt with, those are negative emotions, things that you feel less than about yourself. So we try to overcompensate to feel like we're more than, right? So for me, I used to make a lot of money because I was trying to get love, right? My mother didn't spend a lot of time with me. She didn't pay a ton of attention. And so look at me, mom. Look at me, 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 right? And today, I just do it because I choose to. I do it because I enjoy it. I do it because I get to make a difference. I do it because I get to impact society in a positive way. So getting out of pride is just merely dealing with your shame. How can you do that on a soul level? Ask your soul, what am I ashamed of? What have I forgotten that I'm ashamed of? And start to work through the shame. The pride will naturally level off. When the two of them level off, it goes like this, pride and shame. Guess what you now have? You have equilibrium. You have balance, right? You have a little bit of balance. So hopefully that's helpful, Mike.
All right, those were awesome questions, and even better answers. So we went over much time. We over-deliver though, as normal. You guys should have expected that. Today, we're going to wrap this up. So we got the next 3 days, today was obviously how to rewire your mind, which we all saw. Hopefully we all took notes and learned a lot of stuff. Tomorrow is going to be eliminating self-sabotage, which is kind of along the same realm of what we spoke about today, but Mark goes into a whole different world when he gets into that stuff. And then thirdly, like Mark said, on Wednesday, we have how to create a ridiculous skill set. Most people on this call, if not all, are in sales or own their own business, which is essentially also sales. So we're going to talk about that. And obviously that's a skill set that is the most valuable in today's world. And then number 4 is Mark's strategies on how to create wealth, which we gave us all 4. So nobody needs to show up for that day anyway.
To invest, yeah. Yeah,
He gave us all. Buy real estate, buy more real estate, refinance real estate, and then buy more real estate. See you Thursday. So Mark, why don't you tell us real quick where we can find you, and then we'll wrap this up.
Okay, good. So all of you are cordially invited to join a free Facebook group that we have called the Wealthy Sales Pro. And you can also find me on marktosoni.com. If any of you ever want to book with me, feel free to go to marktosoni.com. My calendar is there. I'll meet with you one-on-one. I'll give you a breakthrough. Whether or not you get involved, whether or not you coach with me, that's your choice. That said, I will give you a breakthrough. I'll find out what's ailing you. I'll find out what's hurting your sales. I'll dig in. I'll find the guilt. I'll find the shame. I'll find the resentment, the anger, whatever it is that's triggering you, that's hurting your sales career, or hurting your entrepreneurial career. So I spend time, I do these breakthrough coaching calls. And again, if you ever want to coach with me, that'll be entirely up to you. But marktosoni.com and the Wealthy Sales Pro, that's where you can find me.
And your coaching is highly recommended from us. I mean,
Thank you,
once a week, just every week keeps me at my peak. I just wrote a little poem.
Yes.
Listen, I'll tell you guys a quick story before we go. Some of the guys on my sales team, I think I told a few of you guys this story actually when I got back from the Vault about Mark. Mark is, when we met, Mark, I said, do you have a business card or can I get your phone number, whatever? He gave me his phone number and then he said, here, you'll remember we did this. And Mark handed me his own book as his business card. So this is the kind of deal. Mark, how many books do you have total? Do you even know?
I have, I think 9 of them are out. I probably have 15 manuscripts.
Yeah.
So I write a lot of books, and most recently, The Closers 5 with Dingee. Some of you know Dingee. He wrote the book called The Closers. He sold 10 million copies. He's the oldest living sales legend, and I was able to co-write book 5 with him, Master the Mindset for Closers. So that was kind of the crowning jewel of my writing career up to this point. My next book is going to be a New York Times bestseller. So, and it won't be in sales. It'll be something like, I don't know, Relentless. I don't know. It'll be something different than just sales, but it'll be more personal development oriented.
Got it. All right. Well, listen, guys and girls, we will be on tomorrow, the same time. It starts at 7:00. It's the same link. Everyone is free to come on. So if you have someone else in your life that you think needs to hear this message as well, or you have friends, whatever it may be, family, that link that we sent out yesterday, which will be sent out again tomorrow, but it's the exact same one. It's going to be 7:00 again. And just to reiterate, tomorrow is how to
eliminate self-sabotage.
Correct.
You don't even know you're doing it. This is the day I'm looking forward to the most, is tomorrow.
Listen,
I'm going to show you the 3 ways you sabotage yourself that most people aren't even aware it's going on, but I'll show you the 3 ways you do it.
All right, everyone. Well, listen, it has been a pleasure with you, Mr. Tosoni, and thank you everyone for hopping on. We will see you same time tomorrow at 7.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you guys, 2 dudes, 2 eggs.
That's right.
See you guys.